Welcome to the Office of Demonology. I'm Dr. J, retired demon hunter and knower of things, and I'm going to give you my latest thrift store book haul. First up, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Anytime I see these old 80s novelizations of movies that I grew up with, I pick them up. And I like in this one, it's E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and then has a tagline, "In His Adventures on Earth." Very interested in seeing how this is written versus the movie. Now, it's a novel by William Kotzwinkle, based on a screenplay by Melissa Matheson. So, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, from the director of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg. So next up, I'll do a nonfiction book. I always pick up books that are about writing. In this case, it is by Peter Elbow, author of Writing Without Teachers. It's called Writing with Power, Techniques for Mastering the Writing Process. And I can't find a date on this of when this was published. It looks like 1980 because it has acknowledgments. So another nonfiction writing book. I will dig deep in this, and I'll probably talk about it on the Writing Fiction podcast. Next month is Old School April. It's where a bunch of YouTubers and booktubers participate in reading stuff old school. There's a checklist. And so I picked up this. It's called The Boyfriend by R.L. Stine. Sometimes love is murder. And tagline is, "Her boyfriend's back, ... from the grave." So I'm going to look forward to reading this next month. A lot of fun with the Old School April. I'm picking up quite a few books for Old School April because I want to plan to read as much as I can for Old School April. All right, let's jump back into nonfiction. This book is called Corpses, Coffins, and Crypts, A History of Burial. I pulled this off the shelf, and then I put it back, and then I said, that is actually very interesting. I'm going to read this and create a video about this. It's got some pretty gruesome photos in there, but I thought it would be a fun read. This is actually from the Santa Fe High School Library in California. That's somehow ended up on the East Coast in a thrift store, by Penny Coleman. Another Old School April read. This one is by Ben Lathrop. It's called Midnight Horror Show. The reason why I picked this one up, besides that it's Midnight Horror Show, it's a horror novel, it is set in 1985, and that is one thing I can check off of reading something set in the 80s. Back to nonfiction. This is Nightmares in the Sky, Gargoyles and Grotesques. So this has text by Stephen King, and the photographs are by F. Stop Fitzgerald. What a goofy name. But this is actually my second copy. I picked it up because I want to sell this on eBay. So I posted it on eBay. If you're interested, I'll put a link in the description. But it's an amazing book that came out in 1988. Beautiful photos, text by Stephen King. You can't get this. It's not available to get new. So, hey, check it out. Another Old School April. This one is Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, and it is the special edition Goosebumps Slappy Beware. So my oldest son, we used to read Goosebumps all the time, just tons and tons of Goosebumps. This will be an Old School April fun read. I don't know if I read this one. I've read so many Slappy ones, and I think we used to have a Slappy puppet. I don't know. That's all the nonfiction I have, but we're going to move in to the rest of my fiction that I picked up at the thrift store. And this is one of my favorite books of all time. It is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter Thompson. I read this book when I knew the movie was coming out, and so I read the book before the movie, which I love to do. I love the movie. The movie's amazing. It's hilarious. But this is one of the very, very few books I've ever read that made me laugh out loud. That's really hard to do. And this book made me laugh out loud multiple times. This is actually a 50th anniversary edition, And it's got all the Ralph Steadman artwork in it. I've already read this multiple times. If you haven't read Fear and Loathing, read it. This book, Scary Stories, illustrated by Barry Moser. Now, the reason why I picked this up, it is illustrated. It's got some nice illustrations, but it's got some of the best short stories by some of the best horror writers. So we got Stephen King in here, Bram Stoker, Truman Capote, Dean Koontz, H.G. Wells, obviously Shirley Jackson, and H.P. Lovecraft, Ray Bradbury. I mean, everybody is in this collection. So I picked it up because I wanted to have a nice collection of horror short stories. The artwork's very much like this, some ink, pen and ink artwork. Next up in fiction, I have Unholy Fire by Whitney Strieber. I have no idea if I'll like this book, but it's a first edition. But also by Whitney Strieber is The Wolfen, The Hunger. I mean, those are movies I love, so I thought, you know, why not pick this up and see if I love this book? Next up, Naked Lunch by William Burroughs. William S. Burroughs, if you want to be fancy. I love Naked Lunch. The movie's great. The book is just out there. Some of my favorite lines in fiction. It's just so out there. This is something I've read, but I love to have it and keep reading it, or just pick it up and look through it. It's not something I would say is easy. He's got some very strange stuff, so you may or may not like him. I don't know if there's like someone who kind of likes him. I think you either like it or you don't like it. And finally, this is somewhat vintage, Jack London. So I've never read any Jack London, but I know White Fang, and that's in here, The Sea Wolf, The Call of the Wild, and they've got illustrations in here. Looks like I got it for $1.50. The dust jacket's in pretty rough shape. That is something, if you're really collecting, you want to collect first editions, you want to get them in the best shape you can. Now, I'm getting this to read it, and if I ever do find stuff that is like collectible and in brilliant shape, then I'd probably sell this one. But right now, I got it to read, and I'm really looking forward to reading some Jack London. That's my most recent thrift store book haul. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, if you enjoy this type of content, you love reading, you love books, hit that subscribe button, the bell, and I'll be back soon with a new video.